What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you two different ways you can export stems in Pro Tools. So one of them is a little bit quicker and easier. It's where you consolidate all the clips, all the tracks, and then just export those files. And another way is a little bit more advanced, but it also gives you a little bit more flexibility if you send it to get mixed or you want to do some sort of stem mastering. But if we go into Pro Tools, you'll see I got this session loaded up. This is a session that I'm going to mix later today, but it's a consolidated version. So I deleted some of the tracks just to make it a little bit easier for the video. But yeah, so the first method is basically consolidating all the clips. So what you can do is, we got these tracks in yellow are the beat tracks. These are the beat stems. And then all these other blue tracks are just vocals, effects are in the purple. So it's a pretty straightforward session, not too much going on. If we highlight all of the audio tracks, go up to edit, consolidate clip, it makes every single track that got highlighted into one clip for each track, but it all starts and ends at the same exact time. So this is important because if I undo this, you can see these vocal tracks. Obviously, audio 4, let's say this track starts, it doesn't start at 0. So by doing this, by consolidating the clip, every track will start at 0. So when you drag it into the session, everything starts at the same exact time, and you won't have to worry about any time alignment. So what you would then do is, when everything's highlighted, you just open the side panel. All the clips, all the tracks, all the audio files are going to be highlighted. You right click, export clips as files, and then you really go from there. You select wave, interleave, whatever bit depth, 32-bit, and then the sample rate. And then you can choose a destination to save them. And that's pretty much it. It's quick and easy. This will only export the raw audio file. So for example, it's not going to export anything with processing. So you can see there's auto tune on these vocal tracks. When you do it this way, it's not going to have any of the processing. The other way to export these is a little bit more advanced, and it takes a little bit more time, but I think it's better because, like I said, you have a little bit more flexibility. So what we can do is, I know that there are 25 total tracks in this session. So there's 13 beat stems, then 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 total tracks, including the vocal bus. So what we can do is, under all the tracks, we can go to track, new, and then put 25. We're going to make 25 new stereo audio tracks. And what I'm going to start doing is, I'm going to start from the top, and let's say this stem is called the crash. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to the first track that we made, call it crash. And then I'm also going to set the input. Actually, I don't even need to set the input. I can set the output of this track into that track that's called crash. So this stem is being routed into this new crash track. All right. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go through all the stems, all the tracks, and do the same exact thing. So this is a drum bus, I believe, which is just a few drums. I'm not sure why that stem is in there, but I'm going to call this drum bus, right? And then same thing, route the output track, drum bus. And then I'm going to do the same thing for all these tracks, pop reverse, right? Third track. Now, obviously, I'm just naming these what the actual file is called. You guys can name it whatever is easier for you. But yeah, I'm gonna fast forward the video and go. Well, actually, before I do that, one thing to note too is, let's say I did all these. When I get to the vocals, I can technically turn off the processing, or I can keep the processing on, but I'm going to keep the processing on. So basically it's going to print the wet stems, because I pretty much what we're doing is I'm routing all the tracks, all the beat stems, all the audio tracks, and even the vocal bus into their own track. And when I click play, I'm going to record enable all these tracks, and I'm basically going to print the entire mix digitally, and there's benefits to doing that. But I'm going to route all these tracks, fast forward, and I'll see you guys in a second. So one thing that I do need to correct is when you route the vocal bus into its own track, it's actually not going to record anything because there's nothing going into the vocal bus. So you have to make a decision whether you want to route each individual vocal into its own track, or if you want to keep the vocals routed into a vocal bus with the processing and then route the bus into its own track. So you kind of have to make that decision. If you want completely wet stems, the same as your, just the way your song or session was, then you would just route the bus into its own track and not the individual vocal tracks, if that makes sense. Same thing with like a drum bus, or synth bus, or whatever bus it is. And then I deleted some of the effects just for the sake of saving time for the example of the video. But yeah, the reverb, I'm sending the reverb to reverb, and then this 8th delay, I'm sending it to its own track delay. So when you do this, when you press play, you shouldn't hear anything because I have all these tracks muted. And if you hear anything, that means that one of the tracks in the session isn't routed to its own track that's muted. So then basically what you would do is you would record enable all these and then press play and print your mix. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you do have the option if you want to print wet stems or dry stems. So for example, before you do this, you could technically turn off the processing on the Vox bus. You could turn off the auto tune, as well as any other processing that's going on, or you can leave everything on and print wet stems. The good thing about that is once you have your wet stems, you'll have everything. So you'll have the output of your reverbs, effects, and when you play the session back, everything will be cohesive, and you can adjust. You could still adjust things. So if you press play, you can see that everything is going to start recording. And like I said, you shouldn't be able to hear anything because everything is supposed to be going to its own track. This gives you a little bit more flexibility. Like I said, if you want to print wet stems, it takes more time, but I think it's worth it because of the flexibility. But I'm gonna leave it off here. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section below. Make sure to like, subscribe, check out the links in the description below as well. Follow me on Twitch. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.